Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Fortress, and joining me today, he's 50% man, 50% thing, Sweet Shanza Kovacs from the internet.
But which is which?
And he's 100% thing, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I gave away my giant-sized man thing. It was one of those Marvel Essentials editions, black and white.
Black and white. Those are good, man. I always wish those things had the color, but then they're far too expensive at that point. Welcome back, everybody. This week we're talking about Man-Thing. That's a thing. Man-Thing is a thing, I suppose. But
it's right there in the name.
It's right there in the name. What more do you need to know? I mean, it's not like Swamp Thing. At least with that, you kind of go, oh, it's going to take place in a swamp. With this, it's like, it's a man, it's a thing. Yeah.
And I don't know if Marvel ever had a female version, but if they did, they would do the stupid thing, like call it Lady Man Thing instead of calling it Woman Thing.
Lady Man Thing. I like that.
I think they call it Miss Thing.
No, there is a Miss Thing, but she's like a female Ben Grimm.
Oh.
Does she carry a big red purse? That's what I see.
She looked like Ben Grimm's body with a normal human lady head. It was, just look it up sometime.
I pictured the thing in just like a white hat with a little blue brim around it.
I'm picturing with just, with bangs and a cute little bob haircut.
Carrying a posy or something. You're like, what's going on here? Hey, I think we got the next. Hey, Marvel, give us a call up here. HeroMoviePodcast@gmail.com. Before we get into all this Man Thing, we do want to say a thank you to the people who support this show and made Man Thing happen over at patreon.com/HMP. Of course, it doesn't matter what level you join up. Yeah, you get the pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and vote on a movie that we watch each month. And here are the results from said vote. Holy moly. This was no one saw this coming. I need to read some of the
In fact, if we had been able to foresee its popularity, it may not have been included.
That's the most accurate thing I've heard today. So coming in at the very last place was Ultraman X, making the performance known right there. Not a single vote. So we know where that one's lying. Next is a tie for Super Bob and Avengers Grimm. Just above that, we've got Rendell. But the two that were duking it out for first and second place. In second place, the Walking Dead Negan episodes, but just eking out over the top was Man Thing. And I was so cocky in how this vote would go. I already went back and watched one of the Walking Dead episodes before you told us the results. Locked up, baby. And Ollie said, got to be Rendell, finished Batman. Robert then said, sweet Shanzi, who hurt you? Why are you digging the 2B river bottom?
It's just stuff that I don't see other people doing. That interests me.
Justin said, Super Bob had me at guy who plays Roy Kent in it, and if The Walking Dead wins, I'll listen to the show, but I'll be doing so in protest. #zombies suck. Joe wrote in, I'll vote with Bruce this week, even though those are the two episodes that caused me to quit the show. That pizza delivery guy deserved better.
Oh, man.
King Solomon's Frog wrote, word up to Man Thing, he's always cold lamping. Brock said, crikey, what is this Man Thing coming out of the Billabong? Because at that point, when he put that, all of a sudden, Man Thing started to gain ground. It was really strange. Nate said, Patsy Walker, American's accent, has come a long way since this movie. And
kidding.
And it was terrible. Still way more interesting than season 3 of Jessica Jones.
Ouch. Oh, ouch. That hurts.
And Alex made up a good point, and I haven't talked to you guys about this. We'll do this in the after show, but Alex says, looks like no one wanted Ultraman. Why aren't they doing Ginger Dead Man 2? Okay, we'll talk about something about that.
I'm all for that.
In the future. But this week, we're talking about Man Thing. Now, I want to play if you want to join these other people and get to vote on all the things that we do and all the fun stuff and everything, go support us, patreon.com/HMP. We really appreciate it. And of course, if you can't support the show that way, please at least share this show with a friend, review us on iTunes, grab your grandma's phone, your kid's phone. We've seen that in this case. That's how long the show's been going. People now are having kids so they can write iTunes reviews, and we appreciate that.
Yes, that's
the only reason.
That's the only reason.
Hey, you say that right now. Bubba Wheat just had a child. I'm telling you, within within 6 weeks, that child's going to have an iTunes account and review us up here. Take that right now. Congratulations, Bubba Wee, by the way.
Yeah, congratulations, Bubba.
That is an adorable little girl right there, man. So, yeah, please do all of that good stuff. Review us on iTunes and everything. Now, I'm going to go ahead and play us the trailer here. I love this trailer because it is not representative of this movie in any way, shape, or form. So let's take a listen to the trailer for Man-Thing.
Our most powerful guardian spirit lives in the dark water. It protects what our ancestors called the nexus of all realities. The guardian has become very angry. For the blood spilled, it seeks blood.
I can show you to the edge. This is as far as I'll go.
You really believe in all this?
I believe I don't want to die, Sheriff.
You sheriff? Meet the old sheriff.
This is the dark corner of the world, boy. You better keep your lights on.
It is chosen who will die.
Who? Who will die, Pete?
Everyone.
How can you shove a branch down someone's throat like that?
How representative of this movie?
I think
Pretty
it nailed
spot
it.
on.
Holy
I think it nailed it,
smokes.
yeah.
Well, you know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do you got for us this week?
You can't really talk about Marvel's Man-Thing without also mentioning DC Swamp Thing. And as for which one of those came first, let's just put it out there that Man-Thing debuted in May 1971, while Swamp Thing's first appearance was 2 months later in July. Of course, with the production time required to create a comic from scratch, these appearances are too close together for one to be a duplicate of the other in the traditional sense. You could say this is a prime example of parallel thinking or parallel creation, but there is more to the story. Swamp Thing has two credited creators, writer Len Wein and artist Bernie Wrightson. Man-Thing, on the other hand, has four credited creators, Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, Jerry Conway, and Gray Morrow. Now, how much each of those four contributed to the idea of Man-Thing differs based upon who you ask. But here's the interesting thing to me as an amateur comic book historian. I'm the kind of guy that digs deep and gets you the dirt nobody else is going to get. But Len Wein and Jerry Conway were roommates at the time.
What?
Yeah, go figure. It's like if Don Mattingly and Keith Hernandez had been roommates in 1986. You got Mets and Yankees living together. It's insanity. But you might be surprised to hear that comic book writers in the early 70s couldn't afford New York City rent on their own, so sometimes the unthinkable would happen. Marvel guys and DC guys would cohabitate. Now, did Len Wein sneak a peek at Jerry's notes or vice versa when these parallel characters were being developed? Well, only those groovy 1970s New York cockroaches know for sure. But one thing that's clear to me is that both writers were familiar with the Golden Age comic Airboy. Now, why would I make such a bold assertion? Well, for one, Airboy slaps. My kids told me that's a cool thing to say. But also,
I thought that was just for music.
But also in Air Fighter, a comic that featured Airboy, issue number 3 in 1942, well, it featured the appearance of a new character called the Heap. In case you haven't guessed, the Heap was the original swamp-dwelling muck monster who's a pretty clear inspiration for the dueling things. The Heap was Baron Erich von Immelmann, a World War I German flying ace who was shot down in 1918 over a Polish swamp. Clinging to the smallest shred of life through sheer force of will and with the mystic help of Mother Nature, who's an actual lady character, his body decayed and intermingled with the vegetation around him, becoming one with the marshland itself until at last a shaggy, shambling, half-world creature, neither animal nor man, arose from the muck during the early days of World War II. One key physical characteristic of the Heap was his dangling root-like snout. Does that remind you guys of anybody?
Oh, at least it's
but anyway, Mr. Snuffleupagus, right? Well, because the heap was from World War I Germany, he absolutely despised the World War II version of German politics, and he set about killing Nazis left and right. The heap even had a kid sidekick, a guy named Ricky Wood, who had a remote-controlled biplane that reminded the heap of his ace flying days. Lynn Wein and Jerry Conway weren't the only comic book guys who liked the heap, because in a chain of acquisitions, the heap rights landed at Image Comics, where Todd McFarlane wasted no time adding the creature into the world of Spawn, where I guess he still might be alive today. I don't know, because it's been at least 22 years since anyone read a Spawn comic book, though I think they still come out pretty regularly.
They do.
Anyway, that's what I've got today, the heap. And speaking of heaps, Adam, do you have a list?
I have a heap and helping full of a list here, because if that comic connection wasn't enough, let me sell everybody on this 2005 disaster, because this movie has everything. First and foremost, I hope you like green, blue, and tobacco, because those are all the colors you're going to get. We've got Alan Moore ripoff writing a fun version of Tainted Love, because that's what you want. CW teens, which is to say 30-year-old teens. Future Adam here. Those were adults. Doesn't make it any less weird. Jaws opening ripoff. Late 90s editing, some decent makeup effects, chowder buckets within less than 5 minutes in. Speaking of which, chowder bucket bloodbath, crocodile cam, branches on branches, fog on fog on fog. There's a new sheriff in town, a city boy starting over in the swamp. Classic. A lot of guys who are trying their best not to show you their true hairline. Coroner who wears a pineapple Hawaiian shirt and smokes on the job, so naturally this guy is the Sean of the movie. Howie Long haircut. We got Trish Walker from Jessica Jones, a poor man's Kerr Smith, poor man's Harry Dean Stanton, poor man's Mark Dacascos, poor man's Terry Gilliam, an ominous Indian named Pete, born on the bayou opening chords, but that song's too expensive, so it never actually shows up.
Yeah.
It almost gets there. Accents that make zero sense. We got Sugar Art Gators, great lines like, what man could do that? Too many alive things out here. I am the county. Get them hands out of the formaldehyde. I bet you, or get them heads out of the formaldehyde. I bet you overcook them. And these are the nominees for the best lines. Maybe it's in the swamp. Maybe the swamp is in him. And this is the dark corner of the world, boy. You better keep the lights on. And my favorite, it's a man thing, man. We got warning shot shooting, door blasting, swamp scouting, swamp pooping, swamp poop slipping, chest bursting, eyeball popping, swamp wrestling, dude's name Renee, swamp dream catchers, a game of Where's Waldo with Man Thing, and a movie that will make you look forward to the vagina ads that they have on Tubi. This movie's got everything.
Okay, guys, to get this started, this is a weird question to start off a discussion of Man Thing. But have either of you watched any of Midnight Mass on Netflix?
Not yet. I've heard good things, and I'm a Flanagan fan, so
I went straight, like literally straight from credits roll on Tubi. I click over to Netflix. I start episode 1 of Midnight Mass, and it really warped my head at how similar the plot to the first episode of Midnight Mass seemed. Like they're in this fishing town that I assume is like Louisiana or somewhere, and there's this new out-of-town sheriff. I mean, it's nuts how, like, thank goodness Midnight Mass went in a different direction. But for a while I thought, how bad would it be if Mike Flanagan just totally plagiarized this heap?
So I've got to tell you something about my experience with this movie. So the first time I had ever heard about this, I was having a conversation with a guy who was a friend of a friend. And he is one of those nerds who has to prove to you that he is a far better nerd than you are.
Oh, I gotta love those guys.
Yeah, my favorite type of nerd. And so he was talking about how he had every Marvel movie since the 90s or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I think I've seen all of them. I couldn't tell you exactly, I've always played it kind of the same when it comes to my knowledge of comic books. And like, I know some stuff, but I'm not the guy. And so he's like, so he's quick firing me on a bunch of stuff. And yeah. And I'd seen everything that he mentioned. And then he mentioned Man Thing. And he goes, what about Man Thing? And I said, I didn't even know they made a Man Thing. Is it a TV movie or something? He said, no, it's a movie they made in Australia and I own it. I was like, oh, wow. Wow, that's cool. Can I borrow it? He was like, sure. Next time I see you, I'll let you borrow it. And to his credit, the next time I saw him, he did have it.
Huh.
And so all I envisioned was that he just constantly kept it on him because it wasn't something where it was a known thing that I was going to be there. And so he just produced out of nowhere a Man-Thing movie for me.
I like the idea that somebody like just has a whole bunch of crap in the trunk of their car for the next time that they might see a person. You know what? I don't know when the next time I'm going to see John is, but he wanted to listen to this Doobie Brothers album, so I'm going to put it here in the trunk just in case I come across him.
And it's totally different for me because I won't admit that I own anything because I don't want to loan it to anybody. Like I have almost nothing unless I know you really, really well. And then if I let you borrow it, just consider it a gift. If you return it, I consider that a shocking surprise. I let you borrow it with the assumption you're like everyone else I used to know who never returns anything.
Right.
I feel you on that one.
Especially if they borrow money.
So my story ends with me giving him back his movie. And he's like, what did you think of it?
Rad,
I was like, oh,
right?
God, it was awful. I mean, it's just so bad. And he goes, and he, again, to his credit, did not say what I thought he was going to say, which he was like, I know it's really awful. Like he was like, he actually did say it was a bad movie because I fully expected him to give me a well, actually, and he didn't.
Huh.
Like he was like, no, this is really awful. This is a really awful movie. But now you've seen this really awful movie, and I hadn't seen it since. It made no impression on me, but I'd seen it so long ago that the people who are in this movie who are famous now weren't famous then.
Yeah. Because if they were famous then, they wouldn't be in this movie.
No, that's for sure.
They certainly wouldn't be in this thing. This thing cost like $5 million to make, which honestly, for $5 million, not bad. Not bad looking for $5 million, I would say.
I think the monster looked better than it should for that budget.
It really does. Like, I mean, and here's the thing. They hide the ball on Man-Thing the entire time, but when you do see it, it's not horrible. It's really, for 2005 and a $5 million budget, that's very respectable.
There's a part of me, though, that hates we didn't get to see a guy in a rubber suit running around.
Oh, man.
I'm always a fan for that.
I wanted to see that so bad, too. And I thought there was going to be a whole lot more Man-Thing the first time I saw it. And so to have it be where I even texted you guys just so that we had a running account of how long he is not in the movie for. It is. Here it is. It's an hour and 19 minutes into the movie when you first see Man-Thing. There's 17 minutes left in this movie.
So, going into this movie, I'd heard you talk about having seen it before, Sean. Of course, this movie has a reputation for being maybe the worst Marvel movie ever made. I don't know if I agree with that.
No, disagree, but keep going.
Yeah, but going in with all those negative expectations, I found myself able to kind of enjoy it a little bit, like in a so bad it's good. Because, yes. like I was recently talking on the Dinger Zone about how I love A Beautiful Disaster. Mm-hmm. And like, there's something about this, like, yeah, it's not good, but I actually never got bored. Mm-hmm. I love the ridiculousness. I love Australians trying to do Southern accents. I love the fact that Man-Thing lives in a swamp, but half of this movie looks like it was filmed in Nevada. Like I love that stuff. And I love these people trying. Like the new sheriff comes to town, but anywhere in the American South, the sheriff is an elected position. So did he like run a campaign from way up north and win the election and then move down here? Also, I don't know if the people who made this movie realize that Florida and Louisiana are two different states, because I don't think they can decide which one they're in. And the Thibodeaux seal it, man. I want to see a spin-off movie all about the Thibodeaux, like a prequel. The Thibodeaux brothers out in the swamp.
Oh my God.
And they use that classic Native American elder named Ted Salas.
Oh, so good. It's also really great to have like a meter for how bad the accent is in this movie, because at times there are a few actors who just nail it. Like the photographer, I know that he wasn't supposed to be Southern, and he doesn't have a Southern accent, but it's clearly not like he's also not hiding an Australian accent. full on has an American accent, like Midwestern accent. But when it comes to all of your main characters, none of them nail it.
It's all over the place. Like, and they're inconsistent from scene to scene.
Yes.
It's not even just, it's not just bad one way. It's bad a lot of ways.
When their voices get raised, there's not even a Southern accent at all. It's just all Australian, which makes it amazing and great. Especially the lady from Daredevil. Like anytime her voice gets raised, you're hearing the Australian, and it is fantastic.
And I also like it because 2005, we'd kind of moved past the shower slasher scene kind of thing. And when it shows the chowder bucket so early, you know they know they got a bad movie on their hands. They got to give you something so you stay in the. But the funny thing is, they give it all to you up front, and then if you're watching for the chowder buckets, you can leave at that point.
Yeah,
there's no more chowder buckets.
Exactly. So stay like the first 5 minutes, skip the remaining 80 in the middle, and then come back for the last 10. You won't have missed an awful lot of much.
Because this was made in prime PG-13 horror movie era.
Yeah. Yep.
There were just no chowder buckets, just the weird suggestion that chowder buckets exist off camera kind of thing.
Yeah, even in like R-rated films and stuff where it was really what like you have all rights to be, and no, we're just PG-13 in this.
Also, you know how I love just the ridiculousness in this movie? I'm just going to say, if you want a little alone mommy daddy time, a canoe is about the worst place to do that. Anyone who's ever gone to a summer camp where you had to paddle a canoe, those things they tip if you sneeze slightly. I mean, canoes are made to be upside down. I think it was Native Americans' joke on the white man to introduce us to the canoe. They're awful.
It's one of the things that I started saying to myself as I was watching it is, yeah, let's get it on in the swamp, like all ladies are.
Might as well be showing them get it on a moving motorcycle, because that's about the same level of balance you need.
Basically,
it is though. Like, it's I thought we were really going to do an almost scene for scene Jaws at the beginning of this movie. I'm like, no, please tell me we're going to just do this whole movie is just Jaws with Man-Thing. And to a degree, they kind of did do that. We got new sheriff in town. These people are, going at it at the beginning of the film, get murdered, got to get an expert and stuff in. Like, it's a lot of Jaws.
Yeah. All they needed was the 4th of July celebration where everybody from the city comes out to the swamp for their picnic. That would have been great.
The mayor's like, we can't get rid of the swamp festival.
Yes, we depend on the swamp festival for our livelihood.
I see, and there's a movie out there. It was freely available on YouTube. It's not there now, but this trauma movie called Blades, that is the best Jaws ripoff, scene for scene Jaws ripoff I've ever seen in my entire life. But instead of a shark, it's a lawnmower, and instead of the ocean, it's a golf course, and that's the
Blades.
Blades. It's fantastic.
You've hyped that movie to us before.
I'm trying to tell them. I'm trying to do exactly. They've gotten on to me. Lloyd Kaufman's just like, he's making too much free money off of this YouTube crap. But I wanted this thing to be like that. But it works for what it is. But Bruce, I gotta go a little against you because the only thing that was keeping me alive was writing my tallies for everything, because it took me almost 3 hours to get through this, because it is a slog, boy.
Lately, I've been getting bored I've been getting bored so easily with a lot of the less than stellar movies that we watch. This one, it was hitting my groove, and I'm laughing at it, not with it, but it like kept me like, this worked way better for me in a so bad it's good more than the Toxic Avenger, because the Toxic Avenger bad on purpose. This, they were legitimately trying to make at least a Blade level blockbuster here.
Well, not for nothing though. At least Toxic Avenger, for what it is, has more of an environmental message than this movie does. I feel like this movie thinks that it wants to have that, but it doesn't really by any means. At least Toxic Avenger had people say the words like pollution's bad. In this, they're just like, I want to like bulldoze crap.
Did they ever state whether that you guys could pick up on whether this was in the Everglades or the Bayou?
I mean, again, with the almost ripoff of Credence at the beginning there, I'm like, I feel like that's where it's got to be.
but canonically, Man Thing's from the Everglades, and then they're talking about the Native Americans, but they never refer to them as Seminoles, which is what they get referred to in the comics because that's the folks, that's the nation that was indigenous to that area. And I kept waiting for him to commit one way or the other when I started to realize maybe this guy from Tasmania doesn't know enough about those places.
I don't.
Or David Goyer wrote it.
I don't think that they say it. I don't think that they ever say.
And I like the idea that they decided to say Ted Sallis was an elder of the local indigenous people, but he still could have been a scientist. Like they felt like you have to be one or the other. And I thought, ooh, they totally dropped the ball on that. Cool to try to be a little inclusive. This is 2005, so they haven't figured out that non-white people can be scientists quite yet. But I think that would have been the good move, is if he's a Native American and a scientist, and he still had the same origin story, but you tie him back to the indigenous lands, and they're trying to take the land from him, and that's how the whole thing went down. Because look, guys, it's the exact same origin story as Alec Holland and Ted Hollis.
Well, I will say this too. This sort of racism is a sneakier, worse racism than the in-your-face racism of the Toxic Avenger.
Well,
where at least I'm going to have to walk on the other side of the street here because this clear racist is standing in front of me, so I'm going to go over there. Whereas the kind of racism that's happening in this movie is it's just so much worse to me. But it's also what makes it funnier, in my opinion. Where it's like, no. See, we're giving him his. See how proud he is?
He's doing well. He's got, his name's.
He's very. Look. He's got his dignity and everything. We didn't do anything bad. It's just so funny to me.
Here's our friend Pete the Indian.
and once again, I don't know if it's my imagination, because when I'm rolling with the so bad it's good, I start to kind of see it as worse than it might really be in order to enjoy it more.
Sure.
But I mean, you guys did see it was swinging back and forth from Dagobah to Tatooine here. We were going from swamp to Nevada, left and right, which I love that aspect of it. They really did not have an understanding of landscape.
Or they just didn't, there was nothing they could do about it.
You could shoot all interior shots if you're not on the swamp set. I mean, you don't have to be out in the desert for the oil Derrick protest.
Well, that's true.
They saw Steven Soderbergh's Traffic, and they were like, we're going to do the superhero version of that. And they're like, but you don't know what you're doing. He kind of is he's an expert at this sort of thing, and you're just some guy with, $5 million Australian money, which I don't even know how much that equals in American money. So it might be even less than we think.
And
the question that I had was, is there a movie that was shooting in Australia before this shot? Because the reason why I'm asking is that they have a really big swamp set that this production did not have the money to build all that.
It is
so I'm wondering where it came from.
Yeah, there's so much This movie has two big problems. It is either A, wildly overlit, or wildly underlit. There's never a lot of in between. It's just at night you either see every single thing, or it is pitch black and you got one tiny little lantern going back and forth. But it doesn't feel like they had the money to light all of that stuff and have that giant swamp set. And because there's a lot of that's nothing but production trouble for you, having all that crap going on. So $5 million, I don't know about that.
Did they film I'm trying to get my years in order, because sometimes I don't remember what year different stuff was made, but where did they film True Blood? Because if that was filmed in Australia, then maybe they had some of that Louisiana set around from that.
I could not tell you.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you if it was before 2005 that True Blood started either.
I think so. I think it was, now, because I'm judging True Blood off
and all
of
I can
relationships.
think is Anna Paquin is a Kiwi, so she'd be closer down that direction, and that's about it. That's all I can think.
That's just how you sell that show. It's you'll be close to home.
Now, I have heard this, but after watching the movie, I don't think it's true. But I'm going to ask if you guys have ever heard. I had heard before that this movie had basically already been shot, and then they got the rights to Man-Thing and kind of slapped that label on it. But they just have too many character names integrated and built into this. On a $5 million budget, I don't think you can do the amount of reshoots necessary to turn this into a Man-Thing movie the way they did.
No, probably not. I think that's an apocryphal story. From what I'm to understand, though, as soon as this was out and made its paltry $1.2 million on that $5 million budget, the rights went directly back to Marvel, from what I'm to understand. So it was one of those that, like, we don't even know what we're doing with this. We can't make anything of it.
Artisan Entertainment, who had the rights, went like belly up before the movie was released, and that's when Lionsgate picked it up.
Yeah, that makes more sense because Lionsgate did get a lot of old Artisan stuff, and I know they re-released a bunch of Artisan stuff on Blu-ray and everything, so that makes sense.
And I don't know exactly what kind of theatrical release this got in the U.S., but a lot of stuff I read called it a made-for-TV movie. Like, I guess it showed on Sci-Fi.
Yeah,
I would imagine they had to edit out that first 5 minutes.
Yeah, there's a couple of shots and stuff, and you can. There's enough. There's not a ton of language in it, but there's enough that you could probably edit out for TV. Not too difficult.
Oh man, I'm glad that we got the R cut.
Oh yeah,
the theatrical release.
Otherwise,
makes such a difference.
You don't want to be neutered by censorship.
Guys, do you think we could start the movement for whatever the equivalent of the Snyder cut is for Man-Thing, like a cut that doesn't exist, and have to get all the original actors to come back and do some, like the most famous of them in particular, to come back and do reshoots for Man-Thing?
I don't think that they could afford it. I don't think they could afford it at this point.
Make it 4 hours long, black and white, 4:3.
I mean, at the time that this came out, right, the most famous person is the guy who runs the oil company, right? That actor is the most famous person because he was in Star Wars. He played Klieg Lars. So I'm guessing that he was probably your big money name, and then you hire a bunch of other people. It just happens that two of those people are now, have been working in Hollywood for the last 20 years. I mean, the dude who plays the deputy is the guy on Hawaii Five-0. Oh. And then you got the lady from Daredevil. I mean, those two people, you're not going to get them for cheap. I know that.
No, not these days. I love the kind of conceit that this is his first day on the job, and like they don't even show him where his office is yet. He is like, the second he shows up in town, he has not even dropped a briefcase off at an apartment that he's renting, and he's already on the case. They're just like, okay, guess what? We're going to throw you in right now. And and I don't know how he stays around for as long as he does, because all of a sudden they fish out the armless, legless body of the previous sheriff. If at that point you don't turn tail and start running, it's ridiculous.
Oh, and he says some great line about where you're going next. Bugs, use your chest as a palace and you're got no arms. Like, man, they got some great, horrible lines that are being delivered as if they're great lines. I love this movie.
Yeah, everyone
from the director of The Lawnmower Man. Apparently, I was just looking up.
Oh, buddy, he's got a lot. I mean, he directed Virtuosity, which is Russell Crowe's best movie.
That was his big American kind of coming out party right there, where they were like, "Oh, he's in this huge movie."
Yep,
and it didn't do too well. From memory, from what I remember, at least.
I saw that movie in the movie theater, and I hated it then. But I loved Denzel. I still do. So, but boy, what a bad movie that is.
I don't understand like how. I love that trailer, by the way, because when I saw that trailer, I was like, "Where was this movie?" This kind of like they make it to be this, crazy horror thing with the rockin' soundtrack. There's none of that involved. This thing, it's not scary in almost any way, shape, or form. It's just a bunch of people, running around in fog going like, what's going on? I don't understand any of this. And the fact that we have just they don't even like tease Man-Thing enough. Like there's a couple of tentacles and stuff that fly around, which is all good and well, I suppose. But like we don't, like you said, we don't even get the eyes of this creature until, 17 minutes left in the film. And sure, it goes all out and it's wild and crazy, and for a $5 million picture, fairly impressive. If you would have peppered just a little bit of that in and out of this entire thing, it would have made the movie a heck of a lot better, because it's not well written, but it's not absolutely horribly acted or shot or anything. It's not bad. It's just it's enough bad that it just kind of. I don't know. It has that stink on it where it's just not going to be good, but it's not like ungodly awful.
Here is the thing that makes this movie a bit of like a treasure, is that it's The guys from Red Letter Media have a great line for this, which is it's not just a bad movie. It's bad in different ways as you keep watching it. And so
yes, that's a beautiful description. I love it.
That is what this movie does. So like, you have people who are clearly on a set pretending that they're in the swamp. Then you have the fact that you have Australians doing a very poor Southern accent. Then on top of that, you have the fact that the special effects are kind of janky. And then on top of that, you have the fact that like some of the characters are just all ADR'd. That had to have driven you insane, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, there are certain characters that there's not a single line that they didn't do ADR.
It felt like they watched it and they were like, ooh, way too Australian. We got to get rid of that.
Yeah. And the ADR is so bad in this movie that even Mrs. Sweet Johnsy was like, is this all ADR? And she is not somebody who looks for that sort of thing. So to have her, just a bystander walking in and just going, oh, no, thank you. I'm leaving. And immediately I thought to myself, oh man, this is nails on a chalkboard for Adam.
We talked a little bit, just a little teaser for people. We talked about the DC fandom in the Dinger Zone here. But I watched a little bit of, I don't know whatever cartoon it was. After about a minute and a half, I was like, I am not the audience for this thing. But it starts out with these two characters, and they're speaking telepathically, and I thought I was having a heart attack for a second, because I'm like, none of these mouths are moving. I'm like, what's going on here? Turns out they were speaking telepathically, but it was so bizarre. I'm just like, is this how they show us a preview for cartoons? It's like, well, we've got all the stuff together, but we hadn't animated the mouths yet. So y'all just going to have to put that together in your heads while you... No.
Oh, man.
Thank God they were... I figured it out. It took me a second, though. I thought we had some serious problems over here. I'm like, there's putting out a teaser trailer, and there's not animating anything, dude. You got to animate some stuff.
So the guy who plays the one brother, the one that's also in the Matrix movies, why is he not in Mad Max?
I can't tell you.
He looks like, first of all, he looks like the helicopter pilot in all the Mad Max movies. He looks like he belongs there. And he's not in them, because I looked it up and I was like, where do I recognize this guy from? Oh, it's the Matrix movies. But I thought it was Mad Max. And he's got this crazy, like, if you're shooting a thing in Australia, he's in your movie. I mean, that's just who this guy is. Like, he won't go to America to work, but if you're coming to him, he'll be there.
You got to sign it up. It's part of the agreement. If you read the clause on page 88.
Like, he has this really scattershot career where, he's in Superman Returns. He's in Stealth, the movie Stealth.
Oh boy.
He's in the Matrix movies, like I says, and then a bunch of Australian stuff. And so it's just like, it's just this really cool career of this guy who's like, look, I'm not leaving this island. We're good.
Oh man, I read some Bruce Leslie level trivia about Man-Thing.
Okay.
I was looking at the IMDb trivia, and they said that the film has subtle hints that the real villains are the Schist family.
Subtle hints.
Subtle hints that the Schist family are the real villains of the movie. Were you guys shocked by that reveal at the end?
Boy, I was.
You know how Normandy was just like, it's this subtle thing that went on. Oh my gosh, this isn't... Wow, great, good job, IMDb. Always just doing the tops as per usual. Love those
subtle
guys.
Nod towards the Schist family being the villain.
That is great.
Did we talk much about like what Man-Thing actually looks like here? For the people that don't want to watch the movie, you want to skip into there's 17 minutes left, right? Is that what we counted?
Yeah, there's 17 minutes left in the movie.
And I think we got a pretty cool looking Man-Thing. And there was actually a person involved. A human being was involved. Like
it's the mountain.
The mountain from season 1, not the more famous mountain from the latter seasons, but the Australian mountain from season 1. 7 foot tall guy. So I guess they did some mocap. I don't think there was really any practical there at all. Right. Which I would have loved to see the 7 foot guy in a green indoor-outdoor carpeting wrapped all over his body.
That would have been great.
I like.
But, I mean,
I like the eyes. I thought that could have been that. Like that's how the Violator eyes should have looked in the Spawn movie.
And they gave us some good, like, I don't know if you call them like viney tentacles coming off of him, which is a little different than the comic book design, but I thought they looked cool. Yeah. And the most important thing to me is to like differentiate Man-Thing from Swamp Thing. You kind of need that noodly appendage around the face, and he kind of had that noodliness like dripping down from his face to help set him apart from Swamp Thing. So I thought it was a pretty good creature design with the budget. You know, it's like you almost get to look at a photo of Man-Thing rather than a movie of Man-Thing.
Right.
But still, it did work for me. I thought it was cool, though. Once again, I would have loved it if they gave us like that great CGI of him coming out of the swamp and this just expected us to buy it when he started running around in a rubber suit.
I also wonder if maybe they had one and then we're just like, no, this looks awful. But I do agree with you, Adam, that they could have used a little more, for lack of a better term here, more dorsal fin in this with this creature.
Yeah.
Where it would have made for a lot more. It would have given them a lot more time, and you wouldn't have had like they really are not showing you this character at all, this creature at all. And so it's so absent from the movie that it makes you take note. Oh, we haven't seen this guy at all.
Yeah, and they give you, like, they try to cheap it out a little bit by giving you kind of the Evil Dead cam, if you will, that's, moving around and switching back and forth and everything. You're just like, ooh, this is supposed to be the shot. Though I did like the one where he's got the kind of main bad guy there and everything, and we see him through while he's holding him up and, shaking him or whatever. You get to see that kind of, what do you call it, predator vision.
And when we do finally get to see Man-Thing, he does the cool thing where he siphons oil from a barrel into the mouth of the schist guy.
Yes, that was an awesome death. I was really surprised at how good that was. That oil just spewing out of the throat and everything. Probably the best kill in this entire thing. And that's what I said. Some of the, as far as like the makeup effects and everything,
that's
they're pretty
a low
good.
bar there. It's the best kill, but it is a low bar.
What about the root through the mouth?
Yeah, I love the brilliant coroner that says, no, look at the tongue, look at the teeth. They didn't shove that in his mouth. It came out his mouth.
And at some point, little trees come out of somebody's eyes at some point. That was kind of cool.
Oh, right.
Yeah, good stuff, man. I mean, this would have been an interesting sci-fi TV show, actually. They could have got 8 episodes out of this.
I still prefer this over DC Swamp Thing TV show.
Oof. Shots fired.
I don't know. They had a rubber suit. I'm big on the rubber suit. And they had Ian Ziering of Sharknado fame.
I like that. That's where we go now for his top bill.
Well, look, man, it's the last thing he did that hit the public consciousness in 25 years.
It's the highest he's ever been billed. It's like Sharknado is to him as Left Behind is for Kirk Cameron. I mean, they get what they can get.
You take what you get and you roll with that bad boy. You do as you can. Well, before we get to rating this bad boy, we have to find out how it relates back 1-to-1 with Mr. Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement in front of me.
Oh.
Hi, Sylvester. Nope. Too informal. Hello, Mr. Stallone. There, much better. Steve Gerber was a weird dude. A weird comic book writer who created Man-Thing for Marvel Comics. He also created Howard the Duck most famously, which might seem impossible now, but Howard the Duck was one of Marvel's most famous comic book characters in the 70s. Then Steve Gerber was banned from working for Marvel by then editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. So Steve Gerber did what anyone in that situation would do. He started working for Marvel under the pseudonym Reg Everbest.
Love it.
See what I'm saying? He was weird. Why was he banned? Because he was a comic book creator who wanted to be properly compensated for his work from a company that had made millions off his ideas, which, get this, he had the audacity to bring up in public like a crazy person.
What?
This was before the Image movement in the 90s. There was no Wizard magazine to make a big deal out of Steve Gerber. He had to do it by himself, and so Steve Gerber chose what I choose to call the Mrs. Doubtfire way of going through his career until the heat died down. In Jim Shooter's defense, he claimed that he fired Gerber due to being late with deadlines, but come on. It's the lawsuit that got him fired. While in the middle of the lawsuit, in order to raise funds to continue the lawsuit with Marvel, Gerber would go on to create Destroyer Duck for Eclipse Comics. Amazing. He also created Thundar the Barbarian for Hanna-Barbera, Omega the Unknown, Silver Samurai, Ruby Thursday, and of course Starhawk, also known as Stacker Ogord, who was played by Sylvester Stallone, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. During the end of his life, he wrote stories for Dr. Fate from his hospital bed, and he died in 2008, and is one of those creators that hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool comic book guys point to as one of the pioneers for creators' rights. Not bad for a weird kid from St. Louis. And there it is, Mr. Stallone. This week's Stallone Connection is Man-Thing creator Steve Gerber. I'll try to do better next week. Hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, Sweet Shawnsy from the internet.
And after, let's just say Stan Lee, actually it was Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter chases off Steve Gerber. And when he makes Destroyer Duck, he teams up with artist Jack Kirby to do it. So it was great. Eclipse Comics was great in 1982.
Wow, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, and then I think eventually at some point there was enough of a rights decision in Gerber's favor that Destroyer Duck like ripped off his mask and said, "It's been me, Howard, the whole time," or something. It's a great story if you ever look into it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And on Jim Shooter, no one's ever looked dead and stayed alive nearly as long, huh? Man, oh man.
Oh man, I've seen it. I've looked him in the eye about 3 years ago. Yeah.
And you lived to tell the tale. That's what's surprising about it. Didn't turn him straight to stone or nothing. Yeah. All right, let's get down to it here at Hero Movie Podcast. We have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. Right there at the top of the screen, Bruce, where does Man-Thing from 2005 fall in the Robin rating system for you?
I want to just be clear here that this is in a so bad it's good category. Like this is something that I understand is not good, but I enjoyed watching it for my own perverse reasons. You know, like I love A Beautiful Disaster. It is something where they legitimately tried their best, and what they tried their best at is kind of laughable at times. And I find great joy in that. For that reason, I give it a Damian Wayne. I think it's a great movie to watch with friends. Watching it by yourself, it's just going to depend on who you are, how much you're going to enjoy it. But I kind of think it's worth checking out if you haven't seen it before.
Where your sanity levels lie, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
You know, how much do you hate yourself? Sean?
Here is one of my guiltiest of guilty pleasures, is seeing someone who is much more famous now in a very bad movie then, and seeing them not only in that bad movie, but be bad in it. Mm-hmm. And that is what this movie is. I'm gonna give it a really low Damian Wayne, just because of the effort that these Australian folk put together. We're gonna put on a show, and they did. So low Damian Wayne for me.
I think for me, I'm going to have to stick to my original recommendation and have you watch the first 5 minutes of this movie and then watch the remaining 17.
17.
And you'll be all right. Outside of that, I don't know that you need all that fluff in the middle. There's a lot of weird things.
Just go straight from the chowder buckets to the noodly appendages.
Right. It's what you came for. You don't need any of that fluff in the middle where you're just like, are we talking about the environment, Native American stuff? None of it's really ever clear.
The Thibodeau brothers' best lines.
Oh, now don't get me wrong. That I had to go back and put on the closed captions to make sure I was writing down the correct thing for my notes, because I'm like, wait a minute. He just said what now? Fantastic. That said, this movie is a Jason Todd. I wanted to kill myself watching this thing. The only thing that was keeping me aboard was writing my stupid, silly notes. But even then, I would pause and just kind of like...
You know, Sean, I would have gambled money that Adam was going to call this one of this, get a few friends and a few adult beverages, enjoyable movie.
No. You know, ever since you first brought that up, though, I think that it got to him, because he's never said it again.
Hey, if it had, trust me, those movies still exist out there. There's plenty of them. This ain't one of those. I think you've got to be on some. You might be arrested if you caught it in the car. You know what I'm saying? Bringing it to somebody's house.
I've got to say,
they put you away in Sing Sing.
I got to say, this is the first time in a very long time that Adam has not liked the movie more than we have, because Adam has been super positive in probably the last 5 or 6 things we've done. And here we are.
Yeah, this took it right out of the sales. I was like, well, they're getting their wish, because this one was a slog and a half. And yes, it is fun to look back at these actors that became something that were just really, really awful in this. But that wears out in about 5 minutes. Because at first you're like, hey, who is that? I know that girl. That was Trish from the Daredevil and the Jessica Jones. Perfect. Okay, we're still in this movie, huh? This is only 10 minutes in. It's bad when the Tubi ads are a reprieve from having to watch the film. That's where I was with this movie. I was just like, what bullcrap ad can I see next? That's when you're hoping for ads. Is there a Tubi free version? Because I don't want to be in it. No, thank you. So, yeah, like I said, 5 minutes, 17 minutes. Those are the time codes you need to understand. Outside of that, you're good. You're good. So that will do it for this episode of Here Movie Podcast. We'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a second here. But, Bruce, in the meantime, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm still asking people to check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. Lots of anime reactions and reviews, really tearing through Attack on Titan, trying to be all geared up for January 9th when the final episodes of the final season drop. And I'm also having some fun with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood along the way. And you go back and look, you'll see I did a new, last week I was teasing I was going to do the totally new Demon Slayer episode, and I did react to that. It's there. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out.
Yeah, and check out our HMP's YouTube channel. We automatically upload all the audio for this, so if you're away from your podcatching device or sorts and you have access to YouTube, check us out on YouTube. So, some of those episodes get a couple of views. Most of them don't, but the ones that do get comments in languages I do not understand. So I just have to give them a big old thumbs up and assume that they're all good, but they're not. They're all bad. Sean, what else?
I always say the same thing every week, so I'm just going to make the noises that I usually do, and you guys can fill in the words.
Eloquent as usual. That's why we love them. So next week, everybody, get yourself out to the theaters or HBO as well, much to the director's chagrin, because we're going to be checking out Dune.
Yes.
Next week. So
guess what, Denis?
A lot of people
I'm watching
excited.
it at home.
Oh man,
I'm watching it on my wristwatch, Villanueva.
Oh my gosh, because I ended up just I tell the story in the pre-show and everything, but I could have watched the new Halloween on my phone, and I was just like, you know what, that's the most disrespectful thing I could so I at least watched it at home on the television, so at least it was that. But I'll probably go back and see it in the movie because it's pretty good. So if you want to hear that kind of loose review, check us out over at patreon.com/HMP. Bring it all back around. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking Dune. For Sweet Sean's and Go Backs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
I'm Arnie Needy.